The first thing we'll be talking about after the setup of Python in so I'm going to set up the Python now in my VS Code. So I'm going to come here. Firstly, I want to use my command prompt. I want to create a class. I want to create a folder inside my so I'm creating a folder for Python class. So I'm going to see the inside the folder which I have created, Python class. So I'm going to run the code. I want to run the code now inside my VS Code. I want to open it inside my VS Code. So it's now open. So I've set up this Python inside my VS Code. So the first thing that we're going to be talking about in this Python course is variables. As we have seen here, we're going to be talking about variables, declaration of variables in Python, rules on how to declare variables, Python numbers, and Python casting. So what is a variable? So a variable is is a named location used to store data in the memory, a temporal storage for data, whereby you give name to a particular data which you want to store temporarily in the computer. So that name which you have given to that data you want to store temporarily in that computer is called a variable. And in this naming of variable, we call them we can still call them identifiers, unique identifier. Like those variables, they have unique identifiers. In the sense, unique identifiers could be their ID to check for that particular variable. I'm going to delve into how to declare variables in Python. So I will be opening my so in this my Python class, I'm going to create a new file. I could call it anything I want to call it, but it's going to have an extension of .py. This .py shows that it's a Python code. So so far you have Python being downloaded and installed in your computer. Whenever you use that extension .py, it shows that you want to run a Python code. I'm going to give it a name, index py, and then we're trying to declare a variable. So we declare a variable in Python using my I'm going to declare a variable my name equal to my name is blessing. I'm going to call my name blessing here, and then this is how we declare a variable in Python. This is how we declare a variable in Python. So if I want to run this code now, I'm going to use print. I will now call that variable which I have here and then save it. If I come here now, I will say Python index tab. I have my code running. If you check at the terminal here, you're going to see blessing as my name. So this is the way we declare variable in So this is the way we declare variable in Python. So another thing we're going to be talking about after declaration of variable is rules in naming variables. We have so many rules in naming variables. One of the rule in naming variables is that that a variable name must start with a letter or an underscore character, just like this one I declared. I have the letter M started with it. You can still have a variable name to start with an underscore. You can have my name is accepted in declaring a variable. I have my name called here Oni, my second name. I now have print underscore my name. And when I come to the terminal here, I'll run the code. Sorry, I didn't save it. Sorry. When I come here, I run the code. So you have blessing and you have Oni running at the terminal. So we said one of the rules in naming a variable is one that it must start with a letter, and you can also start it with an underscore. Another rule in naming a variable is that variables can have, like, you can have both alphanumerics, like you can have numbers and digits attached together. I could have I could have name 1 equal to Agnes, and I'll now say print name 1, have it here, and then save it. I come to my terminal, I run it. I'm going to have Agnes printed. So you could have a combination of, either you have only the alphabet written as the variable. So this is my variable, this is a variable here, this is my variable, my name is my variable here, underscore my name is my variable here, name 1 is my variable here. So another way of naming a variable is that variables are case sensitive. They are so case sensitive that you might have, you can actually, you can have age, means you have age, you have age, you have age. So these three names are quite different. They are quite different. So this is a name, this is a variable for a particular data. You can use this age for a variable for a particular data. You can use this age for a variable for a particular data. And you can use this for a variable for a particular data. So for example, now let me say I have age equal to 10. I now say print. I'll come inside there and put age mistakenly. So if you check it, it's throwing error because it's saying here that this particular age is not defined. So in naming a Python variables are quite case sensitive. So you should pay attention when using such words that are correlating. So they said in naming a variable, we should give names that make sense based on what we're trying to pass on. Just like I want to pass my name, I have my name here. I want to pass age, I have my age written here. So in naming a variable, we give names that make senses. So another rule for naming a variable is that you could either name a variable using a camel case, using a Pascal case, or a snake case. A variable using a camel case. So this is a camel case. So I now say the teacher, Ada, Ade, and then print the teacher. So if you check here now, I have two words combining together. So I have the first word written in small letter and the second word attached to it written in capital letter. So this is what we call a camel case. So you could choose to either anyone you want to adopt. You have the Pascal case. Before I run the code, let me type all of them. Before I run the code, we have the Pascal case. So we have the Pascal case here. So we have the Pascal case. If you look at this code here, I have two words also written together. I have mine, I have age. So I have the first word written, the first letter word written in capital letter, and the second letter word written in capital letter. So the another type of naming a variable is in snake case. Is in snake case. So I have my name, Ada. I'll say print my name. So I have here a camel case, I have here a Pascal case, I have here a snake case. You can choose to adopt any one and be consistent in it. You can choose to use a camel case, you can choose to use a Pascal case or a snake case. We already mentioned the rules of naming a variable. We talked about naming a variable using words, underscores. Also, in naming a variable, we in naming a variable we cannot start a variable naming a variable with digits. If you are seeing, immediately I wrote it a true error. You are seeing the red code to seeing that you cannot start a variable with a digit, but you can write a digit after a word or after a letter. You can have M1. It works. So these are the ways of one declaring a variable, naming a variable, and also talking about Python numbers. So in Python numbers there are three types of Python numbers. I'm going to be showing you. I'll be moving to my VS Code. Let me create a file. I'll be creating a file called number.py. So I said we have three types of numbers. So I'm going to type here three types of numbers. We have the int, we have the float, and we have the complex. So int is just a short form of integer. You can call it int or you call it an integer. So integers are whole numbers. They are whole numbers, either positive or negative digits. They are the whole digit numbers. It could either be a positive or a negative number. So we have our float. Our float are numbers that have our floats are numbers that have decimal point. So are our numbers that are written with a j as an imaginary part attached to it. So whenever you see a number that has a j to it, it is being referred as a complex number. So let's show what we all mean by those definitions. So I have here I want to show my int here. So I call my int. So I say x equal to 5, 4. Then print x. So when I print, I save it, save my code, and then come to the terminal, and then because I'm working on the file number.py, so I'm going to register number.py here. If I tab, it's going to register here, and then click. So I have 4 here. So I already declared a variable here, and assigned 4 to the variable, and then I, and I'm running my code print x, a Python code print x. So I have print x in the terminal as 4. So if I want to check what type of number is this, I'm going to have in here print. I'm going to have type, then pass in my x. I save, and then come to my terminal again and run the code. If you check at the terminal, you are going to see a class of int. So this 4, like we said integers are whole numbers. It could either be a negative, it could be either be a positive. I still add -4 here, a minus sign here, and still save. Let's run our code to see what it has for us. It still tells us that this is an integer. So we have our float. Another type of number we have is the float, and we say a float is a number that has a decimal point. So I'm going to call a variable y and assign a 2.500, or let me say 2.50 to it, and then print y. I'm going to print the variable y, and then I save and run my code. I come to my terminal and then call my python number.py. I run it. So if you check here, you're seeing after the number, the int, you're seeing 2.5. I have 2.5 there. So if I still come here and run the same code, print in bracket, I add my type, I have my y inside here, save, then run my code. I come here and run my code. I have float. If you check under here, under 2.5, you're going to be seeing float. So another type of number we're going to be talking about is the complex. We said a complex is when you have a j as an imaginary part added to it. So let me say I have a variable declared as z. I have z equal to 5y, sorry, 5g, sorry, and now say print z. I save it, I run my code, I come to my terminal and run my code. Then I'm going to be seeing a 5g. And when I still come here and run the same thing, I have print type z. I save my code, I still come to my terminal and run it. I'm going to be having a complex. So these are the 3 numbers in Python. I hope you got this part. So I'll be talking about, the next thing we're going to be talking about is the Python casting. So Python casting comes into play when we want to attach a specific type to a variable. Like you actually want to maybe alter a particular variable, you now want to attach a specific type, you want to call it, it should be this instead of being this. So delve let us go into what Python casting means. So i'm going to I'm going to call a file casting.py. I save it. So in this casting, like we said initially, I said in casting, in Python casting, has to be specifying a type to a variable. So in doing this, we have three ways we could do it using what we call constructors. In Python, we use what we call constructors in performing these casting tasks. One, we could either use constructors casting. We use constructors, and in these constructors we have three types of constructors. Just like we mentioned in numbers, we have three types of numbers. In constructors too, we have three types of constructors in performing this casting. One is the int constructor. the int the int constructor, which is denoted like this. Three types of constructors. We have the int constructor, we have the float constructor, and we have the string constructor. We have the float constructor being denoted like this, and we have the string, or let me put it in a comment. We have the string str constructor. So we're going to be seeing how these constructors are being used. So if I let me say I have we're going to be talking about the int constructor. So I'm going to be calling a variable x, and then I pass in a 2.5, and then I say print x. I save my code and then come here and run it. I'm having, sorry, I'm going to be running. I'm no longer I'm no longer inside the numbers. I'm going to be using casting.py. So I'm going to run casting.py. So I have 2.5. So if you check this code, just like we normally check it using type, if you check this code using type here, I pass in x inside this, we are going to get this class, this x, this variable, as a float. So if we actually we said we want to assign a specific type to a variable. So I want to assign an int constructor. I want to specifically say, oh, I want this variable to be an int, for the fact that it is written in a float format, but I still want it to be an int. So when I come here now, I then pass in I come to this place and then pass in an int constructor. I pass in an int constructor. So I'm going to run this code. So I have this int written here, and then my 2.5 inside it. So if I run this code, I have it saved. If I run this code here inside my terminal, python casting.py, I have it as int. I have it saved to the nearest whole number, which is 2, and then it is telling me that it is now a class of int. So same thing with using a float constructor. So I am going to get let me pass in an integer. I have w equal to 1. Then I say print, let me say w equal to 25. I say print w. So I run the code here. and then come to my, I have 25 here. If I come here and put print type, passing my W inside here and run my code at the terminal, I'm going to be having this. It's I'm going to be having this. It's telling me specifically that this is an integer, that, but because we're talking about casting and use of constructors in casting, so I want to use a float constructor on this. I'll come here and I'll use float. I'll use float. I'm going to save it and come to my terminal and run it. So if you see now, it said 25.0, 25.0, and it's telling me it's a class of float. So the same thing it same thing goes for using a string constructor. So let us exhibit how a string constructor behaves. So my number, I have my number. I say age equal to 26, and then I say print age, then I save it. When I save it, I then come to my terminal and run this code. So I have 26 denoted as my age, and if I come here and say print type age, I'll pass in age inside here and still save and come to my terminal and run the code. I have that this age is an integer. I have here, if you check very well here, you're going to see 26 and you're going to see a class of an integer. So I now want to pass in my string constructor. This is str, it's called string constructor. So I'm going to now pass in my string constructor inside here. I'm going to wrap up 26 with this this round bracket. I add string and a round bracket to it. So when I save it, I come to my terminal and then run it. I have 26 and I have turned age, which is on a normal in a normal circumstance an integer. I've turned it to become what? A string. So these are all about variables, numbers, and casting. So see you in the next topic.